Sessions. I'm going to hit record and do our official welcome. So, welcome everyone to another Empowerment Week. This is Autumn Empowerment Week. This is our last empowerment session of 2024. I cannot believe that this entire year has gone by. We have had three full sessions of empowerment weeks. This is going to be our fourth one of the year. We've covered things from fitness and we've had dancing, we've had travel, we've had so many great options. We've had moving across country, we've done a live painting session. I know James was there last for our summer one, and Tanya, they were both here for our painting session. That was probably one of my favorites this year.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
I think James and Tanya have been to quite a bit. What would you say that has been some of your favorite sessions or speakers that you guys have experienced so far this year?
I
I
think
like
the
it.
painting for sure,
Yeah.
that was probably my funnest one.
I
It
love
was
it.
because it was different. It was something, it wasn't just like listening and getting information. It was like doing something and then it was real interactive and stuff.
Good to know. Good to know. This week is going to be, or this session, I should say, is going to be a teeny bit different. You guys will get the recordings post email like you always do. But one thing that we are going to add is we are going to add a survey. So what this survey is going to ask for, it's just going to ask how you like what you enjoyed the most, what you thought was the most beneficial things, how can we improve, what are some other topics that you guys are looking for. We have been talking about implementing some kind of feedback platform all year long, and now we're finally doing that. So I'm really excited to get to hear from you guys. So let us know what we're doing right, what we can do better with. And like Tanya was saying, we had a really good, fun, interactive session. If you're looking for things like that, give us some ideas. If you want to have a crochet night or, something like that, toss it in there. And let me tell you, me and my team will find someone to make that happen. Me and Lindsay have been doing really great about getting a good variety of people in. Um, so on that note, this week is going to be no different. We are going to have a driving chat tonight. Tomorrow, we are going to do a fun, peaceful session of seated yoga, which I think is going to be perfect for what tomorrow has in store for everybody. Uh, so that is going to be great. Um, Wednesday, we are doing business branding with the seated perspective. I'm actually super duper excited for that. I've never listened to Ali present, and the fact that she does business and branding, it's right up my alley. So that's going to be really fun. I encourage you all to join in with that as well. Thursday, we have the lovely Nikki Walsh Adapt Fit from Wheel With Me Adapt Fitness. We are going to be doing a seated workout. So that is something you definitely don't want to miss. And then Friday, we are ending the year off on a high note, and we are going to have another dance party. Now, if you guys were here this spring and you joined us with Tony, and you remember having it was a fun hour DJ session. Like we literally just danced our faces off for 60 minutes, and it was perfect. And I couldn't think of ending our empowerment season any other way. I encourage you all to sign up and get involved. So, tonight we're going to have a really fun, informal conversation. We want to just talk about adaptive driving. And this was sparked because um, we have not had a conversation about that on the empowerment session yet. And this is something that I'm kind of living through right now, you guys. Like I've been a non-driver wheelchair user for 13 years, and I'm finally like doing those steps and I'm kind of getting my driver's permit and I'm looking into vehicles and I'm looking into how resources go. And let me tell you, my story is not typical. Mine's very unique and very non-traditional, and it was very complicated. And so that's kind of why I wanted to have this conversation with everyone, is because the way that I did it was kind of backwards. And I wanted to, prevent that from happening with other people. So we have Lindsay here who's going to share some of her experiences and resources about her getting her license. I would love to have anyone else who's on talk about their experiences, any resources in their area, and things like that. And then towards about halfway through, we have the lovely, handsome, kind Gerard here from Bridge to Mobility. And he is going to share a little bit about their organization, what they do for people with disabilities and helping drivers get back on the road, which is really, really amazing. So, without further ado, we're going to get started. Um, so I'm just going to share a little bit about my story, and then I'm going to pass it on to Lindsay. If you guys have questions along the way, feel free to just toss them in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on that. If there's things that pop up, just, feel free to have a conversation. This is going to be very, very loosely done. No, no big deal if, we kind of get sidetracked or go down a rabbit hole. So that's going to be fine. But so, um, I lived in Wisconsin for quite a long time. I was injured in 2011, and being in such a resource dry area, I didn't really have a lot of exposure to different programs. Like, I guess I knew of vocational rehab and I knew of a couple different things, but I didn't know that there was a ton of other resources for getting back on the road. And and I'm living in this very small mindset thinking, well, I can only have $2,000 in my bank account. There's no way I can save it for a car because a $2,000 car is not going to be worth driving. And so I went over 10 years without even trying to get back on the road. I relied on family and friends, and I was literally at the mercy of other people for a decade. And I don't know how you guys feel about waiting around for other people, but that's probably my least favorite thing to do. And I saw Lindsay's eyes get really big, and I think she got a little anxiety just thinking about it. And finally, when I moved in with my roommate, Jessie Strongham, a lot of you guys know, her and I have been living together for a couple of years now. She was the one who's like, I don't know what is taking you so long. She's like, that was the biggest gift I could have ever given myself is getting back on the road and getting that piece of independence. I mean, she was sneaking out of inpatient rehab to go to driving classes with her dad, before she was even sent home because that's how important it was to her. And that's what kind of she gave me back. She's like, you need to make this a priority and you need to make this, part of your goals. She took me into the DMV. I did my written test, passed with flying colors, and then I've had my permit for over a year. So I got my permit last summer. I have been doing a lot of practicing with Jesse's car and then my boyfriend Jake's car. So for those who are watching who don't know, my roommate is a wheelchair user and my boyfriend is a wheelchair user. So they both have cars with official hand controls in them. So that's what I've been doing my practice with. I did not go to driving school. I did not ask my physical therapist. I did not ask my OTs. I didn't ask any of them. I'm just winging it by my bootstraps, which I found out this summer wasn't necessarily the best idea. So I met the driving team from Craig Hospital in Denver. I was going there for work, and I happened to be sharing my story with the PTs there. And the more I shared my stories, the bigger his eyes got. And finally, he's like, please just tell me that you're not practicing with portable hand controls. And that was his biggest thing because it's a big safety issue. And I just laughed and just like, I occasionally have used portable hand controls, but no, I explained about the roommate and the boyfriend, and he's just looking at me. He's like, you need to get assistance immediately. He's like, you should have started this yesterday. Reach out to your vocational rehab, talk to your PTs. You need to get a prescription for your equipment. I didn't know that. I didn't know that there was all these steps that I still needed to go through, right? And so I'm just like, now I'm flustered. Now I'm like, okay, well, I'm ready to do the test and I'm ready to do these things, but I'm still 10 steps behind. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, I have now got myself into a pickle.
Yeah, Brianna, when we talk about this, remind me to talk about liability issues because I've been in the industry for 17 years. There were all sorts of liability issues when drivers don't have certification or that, and it causes a lot of problems.
Correct. And if you were going to go through a program like vocational rehab or something, they require you to get a certain type of driving class done, driving courses. I mean, there's certain that the process has to go a certain way, and Bree did not do that. So, and that is what I found, by doing this the hard way, by not getting help, by not doing the research. That was my biggest fault. I was like, I'm just gonna wing it. I'm gonna make it work. And for the most part, I did. And for the most part, it has worked out, but it still was not perfect. And like he said, I still have certain safety and liability hoops to jump through. I will be able to get my stuff, my prescription and my equipment all written off, which is great. And I was able to help get funding from a private donor to get my equipment installed. So that was really great that I ended up not having to apply for different programming or grants or funding like that. I got really lucky by the grace of God that a couple private donors wanted to kind of help speed this along and get me going. Um, So that's how I got really lucky in this situation. Otherwise, I would have had to pay, I think it's, at least $2,000 for the equipment plus the cost of installation out of pocket because I didn't go through vocational rehab. I didn't do the, correct driving classes to get all of that funding for free, and so that was my biggest mistake. And so I've had friends in the community reach out. They're like, well, I just want to do it like how you're doing it. It's like, listen here, Adam, no, you do not. You do not want to do it how like Bree is doing it. Please. Like, even if you don't plan on getting on the road right now, talk to your team about that and start planning it out because it's a long process. It's going to take a while. So that is my story. That is how I got a little sidetracked and did this kind of backwards. But this is why I wanted to share this with you guys so that whoever's watching this live or later on down the road on YouTube, they can see the mistakes that I made and not make those same mistakes. So I'm actually going to pass it over to Lindsay, who I think did this much more appropriately through the right steps and hoops that she was supposed to go through.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's probably a couple of things I probably didn't do like perfectly, but I was injured in 2021. I have two kids. So driving, I was, always driving before my injury. And so I was like, I gotta drive. I gotta get driving as soon as possible. There was like a year, I think the first year I was really nervous to drive. And I was like, I don't know if I can even, it was just so overwhelming. So it took me a little bit to get to the point where and I was taking this like paratransit to get to my, this spinal cord rehab gym I go to, and it was awful. And I was just like, okay, that was enough, that it was just so miserable that I was like, all right, I'm gonna get my license, or I have my license, but I'm gonna get my hand control. So I literally Googled like adaptive driving classes in my area. And then I found Apex, it's called Apex Driving School. And so I'm in the Bay Area. So this is a part of like San Francisco kind of area. There's this amazing guy named Derek Scott, and he actually drove to my house with a car with hand controls with like 3 different kinds. And I got to try the different types. And then he was on the side, like training me how to drive. So that was like the initial lesson was, I think it was kind of expensive. I think it was $800 for everything. But I was like, I need to do this. And I was also worried about the liability stuff because I'd heard some kind of horror stories. And I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm driving around with my kids, I don't want to be messing around with like not being safe, but also not doing it legit. So he was super helpful. It felt like a lot kind of like sticker shock at first, because then we had to get a prescription for hand controls to be installed in this van that we had, which was also very expensive. I don't remember exactly how much, but we were just kind of like, we got to do this. So we just kind of like forked it over and made it happen. But that was really nice because he like let me try out different hand controls so I could decide on the ones that I wanted. And I actually originally thought I was going to be wanting to like do the hand, like the gas and the brake with my right hand and steer with my left hand. But then it turns out I actually really prefer the other way. And he let me try both ways. That was really nice to be able to kind of feel like, oh, I actually really prefer to use my left hand because I can rest it on the side. And so there was like those things where I wouldn't have had any idea about anything like that, right? And I didn't have a friend with a wheelchair, with a hand control. So I was just like, I didn't even know what hand controls were, honestly. So this guy was awesome, and he showed me the way. And then essentially he was like, you need to now inform the DMV, because I still have my driver's license from before my injury. He was like, you need to tell the DMV that you've had this injury, and then they decide what to do from there. And so I said, okay. So I told the DMV, and then they kind of like, I didn't hear from them for a while. And so I was like, all right, well, I need to practice driving the hand controls. So I would practice by myself, basically, like, because I wanted to learn how to do them. I didn't want to have my kids in the car. And he said, like, you have a driver's license, so technically, like, you can drive, but like, you need to inform them as soon as possible, so then they can proceed in that way. So I didn't do it a lot of times, but I needed to like kind of figure out how to work it. So then the DMV contacted me and they said, oh, you have to take your driver's license test again. You have to take the written test and the actual test. And so I said, okay, here we go. So then I took both of those tests and I passed, thank goodness. And it was really scary, but not scary, but it was like, oh my gosh, like I felt like I was 16 again. And I was like 38 years old kind of thing. So that was an interesting experience. but yeah, so then once that happened, I had them and then I was good to go. And so now I have hand controls and I drive. And I do have to say, I think something that it was really weird at first. You have these like kind of reflexes to use your legs at first, and then they don't work. So you're like, what is happening? But then your motor memory kicks in actually pretty quickly with your hands. And I remember like testing myself to see like, okay, can I brake really fast and can I start really fast? And then I have a T4 level injury, so I don't have a lot of core strength. So I had to figure out like what felt safe for me in terms of like strap, like a chest strap, or just like really tightening the seatbelt. And I found that tightening the seatbelt was really helpful. So I just have the seatbelt like pretty tight. And I kind of figure out a configuration where I feel like even if I brake really fast, I'm like really sturdy. Um, so that was something to think about too. And he talked about that as well, this driver guy. And then yeah, I don't know if there's any other details to include, but that was my process. It was the best decision I ever made for myself, because then I could drive myself and I started driving my kids. That kind of like we gradually did that with my husband in the car, and then like now I drive them around you know, without anybody else, and I feel totally fine about it. But it took a little bit of time. It was really humbling to have to relearn something that was like so automatic and second nature, which I think we can all relate to with like a lot of things with spinal cord injury. But driving, now that I can just drive, it's like the most beautiful, wonderful, freeing thing ever. And it feels like such a big step for my independence and just feeling like myself again. Like, so, yeah, that's pretty much it. So should I say anything else or did I cover it?
I think you covered everything. I do have a couple questions. So, from what you were
Yeah.
saying, you paid out of pocket for your vehicle, the van,
Yeah.
and then you also paid for some of the driving stuff and even like the equipment. So, did you get any kind of assistance for any of your driving stuff, or you just kind of you're like, I'm in a rush, I want to pay right now and be done?
Well, so for the van, we got really lucky. We found an adapted van that was very lightly used and already had a ramp, and it was on Craigslist. And
Okay.
then we had actually, one of my friends was really sweet. She was like, I want to help you out with this. So she created a GoFundMe. So we did have a GoFundMe. So privately, yeah, like we had a lot of support from like friends and family, but I did not look into any other avenues of like something that could get covered. But yeah, because we actually ended up getting really lucky and getting quite a bit from the GoFundMe. So that was really like, a very helpful step. So
Absolutely.
Can I ask, did the GoFundMe have any impact? Do you get any disability income payments or anything like that?
I do not personally.
You don't know? Okay, because the GoFundMe, I'll talk about that a little bit. The GoFundMe can impact your disability income stream in certain cases, and there is also now the rules have changed in 2023, I think it was, for taxes
Hmm.
and the income stream. So we have run into some situations where it didn't go. The consequences were pretty extreme.
Um,
Oh no. Okay, yeah, I don't get disability, so I didn't have that, but I also, it was 2022, so I don't know, it might be a really different thing, but we did look into it briefly just for other tax purposes, and it was like a gift. We could put it as a gift, so we didn't have any issues, but I could
Mhm.
imagine if there was a disability kind of, yeah, that might make it really complicated. So that's
Yeah.
a good point to bring.
yes,
So
absolutely.
I'll talk about how we get around that very legally. We make sure that it doesn't impact that disability income stream, and then we work with a couple other organizations that work the same way, and so we'll we'll talk about that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, yay.
Well, before we pass it on to Gerard, I did want to leave just a couple minutes. My other board member, Kaylin, has popped in, and I wanted to see if she had any resources that she wants to share. So she is a OT, correct, or PT? PT? She is a PT. She was working in Greenville, South Carolina, and now she is in Atlanta working with the PT team there. And so she has had lots and lots of experience with working with the driving with the driving PTs and therapists and things. So I would love to hear her thoughts. her recommendations for how to go about the process, Kaylin. I kind of started off by sharing my very backwards story of how I did not do it the right way and I didn't tell my PTs and, all of the things. So if you would like to suggest a proper way for our community to kind of go about looking into driving resources, we would love to hear that.
Yes. So, sorry I hopped on a little late. Atlanta traffic is kind of crazy. So, hi everybody. What's up? So yes, I have had the privilege of working in spinal cord injury programs for a little while, and both the programs that I have worked in actually have certified driving schools. So I came from Greenville, South Carolina. I'm working at the Shepherd Center now. And so one of the driving instructors in our program actually sent me a couple resources. I actually saw where someone in the chat asked about finding a driving school in Florida. So actually some of the resources that I'm going to try to drop in here in just a minute are, so the certification is technically a CDRS, is the person that needs to be doing your driving evaluation. So most of the time, kind of to my knowledge, it is an occupational therapist most often is like the one that will be doing this. So they're specially trained in driving, and they're also certified driving instructors as well. So they have very specialty certifications in order to understand like the complexities of like your functionality, while also ensuring that you're going to be able to get back to driving. And that's also why they can actually sign off on you being able to do that and make sure that they guide you through the proper channels. I was given a website that lists all of the CDRSs that I can drop in there. So you can basically look in based upon your region. And you can find somebody and you can find a certified driving school as close as possible. So I will put that in the chat here in just a minute. And then also the guy that works in our program that sent me some stuff, he also sent me another website that I'm going to drop in there that has dealers that sell different accessible vehicles and install driving equipment. So then it's not up to you at that point to figure out what you need. You will be then assessed by, that's why these occupational therapists have this specialty certification on top of being well equipped to work with this population. So at that point, you don't need to go in knowing exactly what you need. You just need to go in and be able to talk about your level of function and go through like very rigorous testing that they do with you. And then they make recommendations for what you would need in order to safely drive, and things that you would have to be able to show that you have in your car in order to then be able to pass your driving exam, like to actually go on the road with these, like just like if you had contacts or glasses or something like that, it shows up as a restriction on your license. But as long as you are like adhering to what was recommended for you to use and show that you can drive well with that through these programs, you're good. I do know as well that there are a couple organizations that provide funding for vehicles, equipment, and training. I've been trying to find, I have the acronym for them. I'm going to make sure that I can find like the appropriate website to drop in there as well. I was actually just kind of looking at that. So I'll be able to find that. I'll be able to drop that in here as well. It can be kind of expensive getting into driving. You might have already like covered that to some extent, and there is some help in some situations. But there are some options out there as well. I know vocational rehab is also typically very helpful with people that want to go back to driving, because oftentimes being able to go back to either school or a meaningful occupation means that you need to be able to take yourself to a job. So oftentimes if you're moving in that direction and you're working with a vocational rehab case manager, that's something that oftentimes they're not going to supply the vehicle, but they oftentimes will help pay to put the equipment that you need that was recommended for you in a vehicle. Those were kind of the main things that I had to say besides dropping these resources in for you guys. Anybody have any questions? I'll do my best to answer.
Thank you so much. I think this will be great. Yeah. Oh, Autumn, you want to ask a question?
I just want to add something if that's cool.
Absolutely.
So, it's so funny. Like, I love hearing everyone's different stories, right? Like when it just comes to everything, but when it comes to driving. So my funny story is I drove illegally, that I found out for well over a year. Somehow I got hand controls installed in a vehicle. I don't know if it was with a doctor's prescription or without at this point, but I got them installed. They were not temporary, they were the permanent ones. And I drove from the age of like I'd say 17 and a half to 19 when I had to renew my license. And I went to the DMV to renew my license at 19, and they're like, ma'am, how did you get here? I was like, I drove. And they're like, how? And I was like, with my car? Like, I don't, right? Hand controls. And they're like, there's nothing on the back of your license that says that you're allowed to drive with them. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I had no clue what that process was. And I mean, we're talking, this was in 2002, guys. So this is 22 plus years ago, right? I mean, well, 20, yeah, 21, because my injury was 22 years ago. And so I live in Wisconsin, and so I don't know if it's different from state to state, but I had to retake my test
Mhm. A
all
lot of
over again.
yeah.
Okay,
You do.
do they? Okay, so it is state-based, Kaylin? Okay, see,
I
I
think
didn't.
so because apparently there's something. I'm new to Georgia, so I think the process might be slightly different, but I do know that in South Carolina you did have to retake your test with like the proper equipment in the car.
Yes,
Same
yes,
with
yep.
North Carolina as well. North Carolina
Okay.
as well.
So yeah, I mean, whatever.
Thank you for
I mean,
Texas.
I was obviously driving for a hot minute here, so I was good. I retook my test, but the funniest part about it is I had gotten pulled over while driving with hand controls. Had to give my license because of an illegal lane change. Like I went over on a solid white line and merged. And I mean, I got nothing. He never even noticed, or I don't even know. And so,
I didn't
like,
even
it's
know what
just
to
really
look for.
funny. And so that first thing, my story was similar to Lindsay. So that was a GoFundMe. There was fundraisers. There wasn't a GoFundMe back then. So we'll say there was fundraisers for me, and that's how I got my vehicle modified. But here I got another vehicle here come second time around recently. So last a year ago, September, and I went through DVR this time. I'm employed. Also, if you're looking for employment, you don't have to be currently employed. You could also be looking to obtain employment, but you can reach out to. I would recommend the Department of Vocational Rehab. Let them know that you want to apply. They'll give you the paperwork if you don't already have someone. And it is a little bit of a lengthy process, but if you advocate properly, I feel like that really helps. And if you know why you need this, right? Like Kaylin said, like what are your function, what's your function limits? What are you able to do? They'll pay for that whole evaluation that Lindsay and Kaylin were talking about. That's like $800. And so I actually drove out of state just because I got one much sooner out of state for my evaluation. But again, like Lindsay said, they had a wheelchair accessible van. They had hand controls. They had, the tri control for people with limited hand function. You can put them on the right side, you can put them on the left side. And I never even knew that there were choices like that. Like, and I mean, I'm like Bree, we're like talking small town Wisconsin where I'm born, raised, and basically still live. And so, right, like these were like mind-blowing things. But really to sum it all up with DVR, they paid for all of that, and then they paid for all of the adaptive equipment. And so they paid for my hand controls, they paid for not the chassis. So they break your vehicle down in that quote, and they have that chassis part, and then they have, the adaptive equipment, the van ramp, things like that. And so they paid a very large sum of money to help me get back on the road and have that mobility, because that's what these services are there for if you qualify for them.
How long do you think from start to finish did it take the process with getting the help? Because sometimes that was one of the things that kind of deterred me from going through
Oh,
vocation
yeah.
is because the time frame that I needed everything done in
Yep.
going to be what it was. And that's kind of what happened with Jake as well, my boyfriend. His car got damaged in the flood a couple years ago with one of the hurricanes, and he was, trying to go back to work full time, and he was trying to get vocational rehab to help pay for the equipment, but they wouldn't have gotten it in by his start date. So he's like, I
Mm-hmm.
pay out of pocket so I can go back to work full time.
And that's the hard part, especially if you don't already have like an established DVR counselor. I think the hardest part is to just get established and to be on DVR services. That is like all of the bells, the whistles, and all of that. And I think it also really depends on your DVR counselor because I've heard horror stories of people who have had to fight and fight and fight. And yeah, and like I know that also in my role, like and just who I am, I'm an advocate. And so I like laid it all out. Like I made it easy. She's like, well, I've never done this before. And I was like, well, I got you. Like, let's go. This is how we do it. This is who you contact. And if you, and that's really hard. We shouldn't need to know what we shouldn't need to know these things. And so that's the other part is like reach out to your community, reach out to your Wheel with Me fam, like pop it in one of our our things, reach out to Bree and she can send it out to the masses of like, hey, we've got this barrier, like let me let's work with our resources because if DVR doesn't work, there are other people.
Absolutely. And that's the perfect segue into who I'm about to introduce. So, Gerard here, he's actually with a very lovely foundation called Bridge to Mobility. This is one of the resources that I found when I was looking into getting assistance for my car this summer. And the company that I work for actually is tied into the Bridge to Mobility Foundation, which I'm really excited to kind of share some information about. So, for the last little bit of this session, I'm going to pass it over to Gerard. He is going to share a little bit about his organization, what they do, how you can possibly get involved, and if anyone has any questions. I assume that he's an open book. He was always very kind when we had our conversations in person, so I don't think he'll stray away now. So thank you so much for joining us and take it away, good sir.
Well, transparency is one of our core values, and it's absolutely critical. So I will be the open book. So, real quick, I'm going to share my screen here. If you let me share here, will you I think you got to give me permission. Okay. And the first thing I'm going to do, first of all, Kaylin, I want to tell you that I lost a bet once and I had to go to Atlanta and do the MS ride for the Shepherd Center. That was the bet. And I got to meet all the people, like 100 people at the Shepherd Center. I got to get a tour of it, and what a wonderful team that is. So that was very good. Okay, it's a great facility. They do great work, and my wife, we rode. My wife was with me, so I lost a bet, and she went with me, and we rode 150 miles in Georgia. So hold on, I don't want that. Okay, so real quick, guys, I wanted to show you something. This is on our webpage. And so we were talking Wisconsin, and I think that's Wisconsin.
We don't
and if you look,
yet.
You see it?
Not yet.
You don't see my screen.
Not yet.
Okay, hold on a minute. Share screen. Okay, good.
Oh, we're still not seeing. Oh, yeah, there we go. There we go.
Okay, so there's our website, and under the how to apply for a grant, we have done our best to list, dealers that sell these type of vehicles and these type of products. And then if you click on the resources, we have like Wisconsin Vocational Rehab Center, phone numbers, text, all that. Wisconsin Assistive Technology Program. So we have this for every state. We're trying to build it out in Canada also. We haven't done that. But like if we go to Florida, we've got all the dealers listed. And then on the resources, we've got those agencies in Florida. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out. All right, so now I'm going to change my screen. The other thing is I wanted to share one more thing, and that is, hold on a minute. Number one crisis that dealers said in the industry is vehicle affordability. This just came out last Friday. They had a survey and they released their findings. So we're trying to work on that. We're trying to make this more affordable because it just isn't right the way it is. I mean, the cost of these things are so expensive, but you have to understand the work that goes into it. They basically take a car, they cut out half the car, and then they reinstall it to make it accessible. So there's some work that needs to get done there. Okay, with that, I will start my presentation real quick here. So let me go. Everybody see this?
It's still showing the United States map.
Okay.
You need to switch the screen that you're sharing.
Okay, good. What's it show now?
There we go. It's your presentation.
Okay, good. So we believe in strategic partnerships and synergistic results. And we are hooking up with, Brianna, we're going to be hooking up with your foundation and helping each other out. And we've hooked up with a number of foundation and private industry. So real quick, I want to give you an update of how we work and answer like any questions. So why do we exist? The statistics are amazing. 96% of wheelchair users don't have access to a wheelchair accessible vehicle known as a WAV. 45% of the population, and I'm sure the Wisconsin, and depending where you live in Georgia or Florida, 45% of the population does not have access to public accessible transportation. And some of you talked about taking it and how horrible the experience was. I mean, they have to pick up 3, 4 more people before they come and get you. And then, you have to leave 4 hours before your appointment. I've seen it all. So it isn't really a productive or viable solution. And what happens? Well, high school graduation for students with disabilities is about 12% lower. Wheelchair users are 50% less likely to complete higher levels of education beyond high school. And then they're 150% more likely to live below the poverty level. And we just believe that having access and being able to leave the house changes medical outcomes, educational outcomes, employment outcomes, community engagement, social engagement, and that's why we exist. So who are we? Well, our mission is to accelerate accessibility. And our strategy was to develop strategic relationships along with raising funds with industry partners and what I call mission-aligned nonprofits. These are nonprofits don't necessarily have our exact mission, but working together, we can help them with their mission and they can help us with our mission. So we're a collaborative effort of the wheelchair accessible vehicle industry, and that includes the manufacturers, the dealers, the equipment suppliers, of which Brianna works for one that is a very good friend of ours, AMF Bruins. And then we partner with a collective group of mission-aligned nonprofits to address the consequences of not having a WAV. Okay, we are a nonprofit. Our core values are excitement, inclusion, empowerment, interesting, empowerment, and the Empowerment Week here, and transparency. And we believe that, working and getting these grants, we can improve medical outcomes, employment outcomes, increase independence, increase community, social, and family engagement. And I've been doing this for, we started this about 2 years ago. A little over 2 years ago. It took about a year to get off the ground and get people to say, okay, this might make sense is what it was. No one was behind us. But over a year, we've been operating for over a year. And I'll tell you that I'll share with you some statistic. It's been a very powerful and impactful year. And one of the guys that drove that unfortunately passed away. But one of our first board member was a man named Dennis Kassabe. And I got to spend some time with Dennis. And he was a federal prosecutor. He was injured at 18 years old in a car accident. He brought down the Mongols motorcycle. He'll tell you the story. He brought down the Mongols motorcycle gang from a wheelchair. And he tells that story. And he said, my biggest challenge was never, as I went through school and my medical challenges, my career. And he started as basically a defense attorney and worked his way, to a prosecuting attorney and then a U.S. district attorney. His most significant obstacle, he said, was transportation, and that's why he joined our board. So, first of all, I'm not going to go through everybody on this list, so just relax. But I want to point out that we are all volunteer except for one employee, and that's Christopher Wathy. 100% of these people give up their time to make this happen. So, we have a board of directors, and I'd like to just shout out to a couple people. Marilyn Clark's our chair. The reason we started this, her late husband, Taylor Clark, his dream was to do this work right here. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2018. So she called me in 2022 and told me what she'd like to do. And I was a dear friend of Taylor's. Would I help her? So we went about recruiting a team, and And this had been tried 3 times before and it didn't work. So we had a lot of doubters. So anyway, we put this team together. I will tell you, our newest board member gives me orders frequently, General Robert Neller, who was the 37th Commandant of the Marine Corps, which is the highest level in the Marine Corps, and he was on the Joint Chief of Staffs for the President. So he always tells me, Gerhardt, you think too small, think big. No, so our grant committee is the one that looks at each grant on a case-by-case basis, and they look at it blindly. What that means is they can't play favorites. They don't know who the dealer is. They just have the factual situation. Outreach and community engagement, we got a governments committee. Our associate board gives us a lot of energy. These are up-and-comers in the industry, or they have specific expertise. The Executive Advisory Council are the leaders of some of the largest companies in the industry. And we have one person that's Executive Director of the Automobility Research Education Foundation, Danny Langfield. And then probably the most impactful committee that we have, and that map was their idea to put that together. They worked on that map, putting it together, is the awareness and education. These are all people who are in a chair or take care of someone in a chair. And got some great people on this. Adam Maley, if you go to our YouTube channel, you can see his story. We worked with him. We worked with one of our partners, and we got him back to driving, back to work, and back running his company. Cora Lenhart. Cora is a person that when we met her, we changed out her hand controls immediately. She was driving with Amazon hand controls, and we're working at getting her the right. But she is a certified motorcycle racer, and her name of her team is No Legs Racing. And Brianna is our newest member. So Brianna, welcome aboard. But these are all people that just have a major impact, and we look to grow this because they provide us such a great perspective and relationships. Okay, not going to go through everyone here, but these are people that signed up and said, hey, we want to support your mission to accelerate accessibility. I'll point out AMF Bruins. I've known those guys since they were one of our first members. I'd like to point out, I've known them since 2012. And right now, for every grant we do, they are contributing a wheelchair restraints, to make sure people are properly restrained for every one of our grants. And that's just awesome. But these are companies in the industry. In this list, I eventually plan to have 300 locations in this list. And that means that people will have access to our program from all 300 locations across the industry. Okay, our nonprofit partners. The one I want to talk to you about for sure that you need to make people aware of is Help Hope Live. They are like a GoFundMe, but they've been around 41 years, and they've basically put $188 million to work for medical needs. And I tell people they're better than we are. And the reason they're better than we are is we work on the WAV. Once the WAV's done, we're gone. They can continue to stay there for therapies, medical treatments, medical equipment, DME, home access, ingress, egress. They help with the WAV. And if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see 2 stories of where we worked with Help Hope Live. It just very impactful organization.
We've actually been lucky enough to have them do a empowerment presentation a couple of years back as well. Sunny is a fantastic lady, and I'm hoping
Donnie Mullen.
Yep. Yes, sir. Yeah, we're hoping to loop her back in for the 2025 year as well, just to kind of get that information back out there again. Because Help Hope Live is amazing.
Yeah, and I think for those that are struggling with, the CDRS is well within the CDRS instruction and evaluation, and the equipment are well within their scope of the services that they will fund if you can raise the funds, if you can do the fundraising. And they have all sorts of tools. They run an independent campaign. If you don't need all the money, you can save it for future years. They're just very, very impactful. They can help so many people. So, and they have helped. I think we have 23 programs, 23 grants that are currently in process with them, where their fundraisers are in process. Okay. So this next slide has a lot of noise. Okay. So I'm going to tell you really quick. We just wrapped up our first year, October 1st. And in that year, we have done 104 grants and $490,000. What we do is we will do grants up to $5,000, and that's just because we have limited funds and we want to impact. But we work with many people. We work through the NMEDA Dealer Network. NMEDA is National Mobility Equipment Dealers Association. And the reason we work with them is they are all audited for compliance with Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards and National Highway Transportation Safety Administration standards. So we know that whatever solution they come up is compliant. They give us 300 plus points of contact, which is huge for us in getting the word out and helping people. And they make sure that little things like if they're going to install hand controls, you're certified to drive with hand controls. Okay. And a little bit about my background. I spent 17 years in the industry with a company that was, in the industry, and part of my job was handling risk management. And what's interesting is some people think the dealer is the bad guy. Well, he won't install my hand controls because I don't have certification. Well, it isn't necessarily the dealer. It's the insurance and liability that these dealers are required to have. First of all, NMEDA dealers are required to have a level of insurance, both liability and for the vehicles and the cars they take care of. The insurance company sets the regulations a lot of time, but NMEDA also has that regulation that you have to prove, competency and certification with the equipment. So I just wanted to put that as an aside here. So our average approval from once we get a grant to when we may get a decision from our grant committee is 2.3 days is the average. And the mode, that means what happens most often is 24 hours, 1 day. So we understand, and we're last dollar funding. What that means is everything else has to be in place. If you have a GoFundMe campaign, if you're getting vocational rehab, if you're getting, any type of family and friends, we want to know the vehicle. We take a Carfax of the vehicle. We take pictures of the vehicle. We make sure that our grant committee is, basically okay with the solution that the dealer's providing, and that everything else is in place. And that puts the burden on us to make a decision very quickly, and we do. Now, what I'd like to point out is we're last dollar funding. That means a lot of things have happened before we come in. And this is hot off the presses. We went back and we evaluated every grant we did. The grants that we did, and these were people that couldn't get the vehicle without this $5,000. We worked with basically, I think it was 19 different governmental agencies. No, 9 governmental agencies that provided 1.1 million of funding. We work with 19 what we call mission-aligned nonprofits that had raised $237,000. And then we came in, we work with what they call subsidized lenders. These are not available every place, but there's certain nonprofit lenders. And I can tell you there's one in Louisiana, and I think there's one in Missouri. We've done 3 grants with them, and those are low interest, like 4 to 6% loans that these dealers get the money, not these dealers, these lenders get the money and then pass it on in a nonprofit way to the recipients. They have limitations on what they can fund, anywhere from $25,000 to $40,000, but we help them with their grants improve the equity position that the people would qualify for the loans. We did that on 3 grants, and they provided $125,000. And then you have the typical GoFundMe, families, friends, churches. We will help them on 34 grants in total. They had raised $498,000. We came in with $491,000 on our 104 grants. Okay. Any questions on that? Because there was a lot of stuff there. Okay. So how does our process work? The good news is we make the dealer do the work. Okay, you have to provide the dealer and the information, and then the dealer has to give us his info because we have to make sure he's an immediate dealer. They have to give us the background information, basically, what has happened and why this is a last dollar funding situation. Because we have to live true to our mission, last dollar funding. Give us background on the case, like, was an accident, like you guys have all told me today, what happened. We need that type of background. We need information on the vehicle. We have a financial, basically, we call it uses and sources. So, how much money do they need to raise? Those are the sources. And where's that money coming from? And then how much is the WAV conversion? How much is the WAV chassis? What's the adaptive equipment? Are there any type of extended service contracts or warranties? What are the taxes? All that. We look through that, and we have certain experts on our grant committee that know whether everything's, fair and square. We have an attestation that basically the dealer has to complete on behalf of the client, that it is a last dollar funding, and that everything is provided at a fair market value. There can be no unjust enrichment, and we make them sign that. Okay, we review that here at the Bridge to Mobility. If everything's good, we blind it and we send it to the grant committee. We basically email it to them. We need a super majority of the grant committee to approve it with no dissensions. And we tell the dealer it's been submitted. We count on the dealer to talk to the recipient. Okay. Sometimes they might bounce it back for some additional information. We'll handle all that. We'll go back to the dealer and get the additional information for the grant committee. It doesn't happen often, but can happen and can add some time to it. Our grant committee makes the decision. We notify the dealer. We have a form that we make the dealer and the recipient. We would like them to sign, because to get out our story, we need pictures and video whenever possible. And we have a media release, and we tell them how we fund. We don't give the money to the individual. Okay. The money will go to the dealer once he's delivered the product. Okay. We require a delivery receipt. And then once we receive that, we fund typically the dealer in 7 days. Okay. That's our process. It takes the dealer typically 15 to 20 minutes to do the application if he has all the information. So we don't want the person in the chair to do any more work. That's it. We're not gonna drag you through the BVR. Okay. So Adam Millay. Adam is on after we did the grant for Adam, he went ahead and he said, listen, this is the most amazing process. I love what you guys are doing. I'd like to help out. So he joined our education awareness committee, but he had hit a deer and totaled his van. He had 40,000 insurance proceeds. He had some money from BVR. All the equipment had to be removed and recertified. He couldn't go to work anymore. He has his own business. He had a real hard time keeping the business up and running. We worked with a dealer to expedite this and get this going. And we were able to get Adam back, and Adam's story's on our YouTube channel. And he called me up and he said, listen, I'm a grant writer. I know how this process works. You guys are so amazing. He goes, I can't believe it. So and he said, I'd like to help you. So that's it. And then Ansley, this was a young college student. She was a high school student going to college. She had received some other funding. She was still short. We came in and helped them. This allowed her to go to work. She works in the community as a volunteer for people that are newly injured, and she's going to college in her vehicle. So with that, I would like to tell you, follow us, like us on Facebook and LinkedIn, check out our YouTube channel, and check out our website. And with that, I open it to questions.
And I will make sure to all of the resources that Gerard and Kaylin and that Lindsay had shared, I've been pulling them all from the chat and saving them on a note sheet so that I will attach all of these links and resources to the post event email tonight with the recording. So everything that has been shared tonight will come into the email. So think that was such a good presentation. I love when nonprofits and organizations kind of work together. You'll see, it's kind of like when you see different medical companies that are supposed to be competitors, both supporting the same event, right? You know what I mean? And it's not necessarily about who can make the most money. It's how can we help the community? And that's what I love about what Bridge to Mobility is doing. Collaboration is one of We With Me Foundation's main values. So seeing that they're collaborating with other nonprofits, other organizations, other people just like them. That is how we get stuff done, you guys. It is not by competition. It is by working together. So I personally love all the people that are working with Bridge to Mobility. I love that there is multiple resources in just this one resource, right? Like he's sharing about Bridge to Mobility. We mentioned, Help Hope Live, and we mentioned all these other organizations that are vital for the community. So thank you so much for sharing all of that with us, Gerard. We have gone a little over time, so I just want to be respectful of everyone's evening. Is there any last minute questions for myself, for Kaylin, for Lindsay, for Gerard from Bridge to Mobility? Is there anything at all that you guys are curious about? Going once?
Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well,
Thank
thank you for the opportunity and spread the word.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what I was going to say. Thank you guys all for your time tonight. Thank you for sharing so many amazing resources. I cannot wait to send out tonight's email because it's packed full of tips and tricks. And Tiana, I have your email saved. I plan on reaching out to you. I'll send all of the links directly to you as well. And if you have any other questions for me and my team, feel free to message me back. Like Autumn said, the only way to do this is by reaching out for help. That was my biggest struggle, is that I tried to do this on my own, my way, and it just didn't work out. And so I think the biggest lesson from my story is ask for help. Tell your story to the community. Tell your PTs, tell your OTs, tell your regular doctor. Maybe they can even get you on the right track right off the beginning, right? So if you guys have questions after this is all said and done, please feel free to email them to me. I will also add Gerard's contact information. So if you have specific questions for Bridge to Mobility about their services, you'll be connected with them as well. And reach out to your local independent living center. Absolutely, Autumn. There is resources out there, vocational rehab, independent living centers, all of the above, right? Find out what's in your area. It doesn't hurt to look. So thank you again for taking an hour of your evening to spend with Wheel With Me Foundation. But again, thank you for spending an hour for investing in yourself. I say this every single night that we end the sessions. This is not just about me. This is about you guys and your future and your independence. And the fact that you took 30 some or 60 something minutes to pour into you and make your life better, you should be really proud of yourselves for that. And I really hope you keep coming back. We have a packed week. This is the last event of the year, you guys. We got to go big. We're going big because I'm not going home. I'm not going home till next week. I'm on the road. So tomorrow it's going to be a crazy day with everything that's going on in the nation. So come join us at 6 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Pacific time. We're going to have seated yoga. We're going to calm our bodies down. We are going to just kind of zen out for a little bit. Yes, exactly. We're going to bring it all in. We're going to ignore politics for 1 hour tomorrow, and we are just going to give the body the stress reliever it needs. Wednesday, we are going to do branding with Seated Perspective. Super excited about that. Thursday, we're going to get moving, get our bodies grooving with Nikki Walsh at Fit. She is one of my favorite personal trainers in the scene. I am a little biased because she is one of my close friends, but she's amazing at what she does. You do not want to miss that one. And then Friday, you guys, if you are like me and you just sometimes need to have a 20-minute dance session in your kitchen, we're going to expand it. We're going to have a 60-minute one. Just music, just good vibes. Tony is an amazing human. He has brittle bone disease and he was wheelchair bound for a very long time. He has since relearned how to walk. He does personal development coaching. He does nutrition and fitness coaching for the community. He's broken a bajillion bones, but he's still out there getting the darn thing done. So I implore you guys, encourage you to come listen to his story, listen to him, DJ for us. It is going to be a whole vibe. So thank you guys again so much for tonight. And I hope to see you all tomorrow. Thank you, Gerard. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Kaylin. Thank you, Autumn. Thank you, James and Tanya and Tiana. Thank you all. Have the wonderful night, and I will see you all tomorrow for yoga.
Thank you.
Bye,
See you
guys.
tomorrow. Thank you.